Joyous, doubtful mindset growing up in rural Jersey, I knew much about nature. See, when the sea fish migrated shorewise, I went inland and brought boats for the bayou, becoming flood silhouettes from satellites. No tall building. Venice plumbs depths for tubes to waste away, but finds no excess salvageable from previous streets, only canoes. And hovering Daniel above the city as feeble fragmentation sheds like beams over NYC. But I knew never of the city, only my infancy in Philadelphia and resultant sergeant-occupied previous power plants in the east. Now nature overlaid by mushrooms like in Nausicaa, perhaps in some realm besides the cordyceps antmania spread to steppes westward. But only I seemed to be beyond the periphery. When I was 33, I began to travel all over this new world we know now so exactly as we imagined it in the 90s. Through 3 years after famine, flood, fury, body diseases west of our world, but heard in a kind of massive inheritance catastrophe, what a world we have received. Such a knocking down of all-knowing nations, scientifically researched and plumbing now useless. The world has shown itself strange and yet divine, and so divided by collective doubt and spiritual layabouts, possession between now seen semblances of psychic stargazers and shameful hell-raisers. I built the dungeons in western PA to deal damage to encroaching Amazon rainforests, a plethora of elephants from imported southern savannas in Carolina and Florida, each a bustling barter economy, with terracotta living spaces crawling out and floating far out from the islands they cauterize and atomize the plastics and concentrate carbons to diamonds, fueling astroturf surfing silicon batteries. Staying starbound, they want to stay at ease with the new Cherokees of Inland Arkansas, who've risen from the dead and stream like Peter's tears of rage, revenge, and renewed radiation treatment program. No vote, they'll toss you to their pelts, which walk like dogs in mythological accuracy, said my 3 co-workers driving home from catering. There are many spirits who have returned to the land. For example, the ephemeral, moth men and women of Tidewater River, which flows 20,000 miles through water sunk in D.C. Way west, cooler temperatures allow the hemp, biologically manufactured over miles and miles of hinge benefits of Denver burnings, which heat the growing cold nights and provide an increase in certain molecules throughout the northern hemisphere. I'm just giving you a backdrop of the place I came from. How it happened we may come to know, but my tour of shared America began in military drilling down machinated canine regiments from northern Canada. The modern frontier, since all the ice moved or melted. Groenland, wreckage of previous civilization long since passed under fossilized ice melting from the inside out. The northern icebergs were melting once more, and the earth with new terracotta technology could warm itself to provide necessary living condition for the people beneath. Canadian supremacy on the northern Cape of Maine and Quebec way outmatched my New Jersey nation-state, and demanded Boston and Venetia and the tribute of sacrificial victims in numbers. Was I captured? When once I awoke from Manning's simulated single combat, I felt a crack on the back of my head, quite unlike my meta-narrative. I woke to great nebulas of flowing green-limbed bodies knocking into one another as monstrous gods. The decider of my fate was when I turned my head and saw the vessel craft from which I was lying on my back. And looking up just then, a massive green cloud reached down and grabbed me in an emerald Milky Way arm, magically mentioning my name and saying, "From now on, I name you Mab, and King will make her see you through the seer of Abel. Tell me, my worthy one, what do you think you will do when your Groenland boat ashore?" "King," said I. "Buy me a fast food sandwich, I'm starving," said the other mass of green, and so the arm begrudgingly slouched away. But I noticed that a new set of clothes on my slave quarters. Hammock sitting down, I threw on a white robe and a shimmering velvet green bow tie, which fit my neck perfectly. Sudden knocking suggested I hide, so I fell behind the pyramids of shifting cargo. Flashback to my youth in 2016, when Trump, from east to west, swept an election. Later he would, from prison, wake the dead in number, returning with a holy book which, written in a mysterious, decipherable script, he said came from God, and not from the internet forums, which wrote the new rules of the systemic revivifying of spiritual benefits factions. He was heralded as the new Q, who wrote the initial documents to a few Bible's verses. The newfound Cairo revival brought back Byzantine icons who showed humans in Rome the light of holy conquest of holy lands outside their borders. And Europe and Asia looked down on the cross's zombified second coming. But Germans and Poles swiftly mingled orthogonal dark practices in medicine, and splayed Italy and France joined with Macedon to swarm new Siberian farmers. Defenders of Greece and Maiar, old Hunnic territory, cavalry charges to tank radar, seeking guerrilla warfare and unending war in Ukraine. Not now against the country of Russia, but now with Chechnya, steppe-type nomad masters of the mechanism. Since they rediscovered Soma, speaking in Pi dialects received from Confucian 7G radio towers who have simulated mind control in Tibet. But of course, all before the mighty Eye of Osir, raised from the sea, an Atlantean plastic island of the Sahara, quicksands, exploding waves of African waters blew the Mediterranean all over southern France and nearly all of Italy islands in the Alps. And devastated Paris, and rushed floods in Bavaria, but rose from that old white hot and returned to the gleaming Mauritania rivers. But enough of these zipping sailboat seafarers who traded in volcanic concrete and salt and challenged the Canadian oceanic naval doctrine. By chance I found myself in white robes and green tie in the basement of my ship's destined slavery for me upon arrival, and footsteps coming to find me in my ridiculous outfit and not in that hammock. Would they saw off my little fingers and tear me in 3 pieces to harvest ATP? But soon I found myself face to face with a figure who was not pasty like a Canuck from Alberta or Wisconsin, but black with raging purple eyes and lined with those stories of Atlantean new men who stayed youthful, and warned me that I should not move or else I would feel his weak cleaver. I stepped, despite myself, into the shining light from the porthole and flashed the green bow tie in a gesture of weakness. Widening eyes, he said, "Only come with me. The prophecy must begin subsequently." And he took me up on deck where we passed the severed souls of many Nova Scotian sailors and sung with the heavy branding on their bodies of old British Columbian compatriots. His fellow, whose name I did not catch but addressed my captor by the name of Poe, gestured toward the boat, a small dinghy with atomized diamond hull, and so we rowed. Poe told me that why he hadn't killed me was because I looked hungry, and after all it had nothing to do with any prophecy of a green emerald bow tie and white robes, and I found this strange, but he said that I could count him as a friend, and then he smiled, and he and his friend exchanged knowing winks, and then the boat went down beneath the waves. "It always changed," said Cherry, "but I don't misunderstand her secret's understanding." "You want to get specific?" I held her hand, and that was all we had ambition for, foolishly. Going back to my house was a source of home feeling, and my room the great escape, which only amplified in the months and years to come and perhaps led to my ultimate blasting off, or out of town. And extended my youthful travelings all over the southern country, and few great cities in the north like Salem or Boston as it was known, or Chicago once. I was reprimanded for stepping on a boat in one of the great canals and received a proud tour of the city's fine waterside architecture. like a decorated American pyramid temples. For example, I've been to the wild savanna of Georgia and Carolina and seen the wicked batteries which they use to fuel their preserved metropolis. I've sang songs and seen tiny-limbed men as long as ropes defend themselves from the dumb, dangerous, duplicated crocodiles that roam the streaming beaches in Birmingham and Louisiana Delta exceeds even what had been D.C. and gone on many towns along the shore, torn by water, and now those citizens throw wicked spirit glam rock jam bands and fiestas beneath the waves. A train goes down beneath the city. I never saw the city before it sank. When we thought we had hit the drop-off point of our each separate and long-drawn illness, physical possession by illness, I was in Mexico and swam on beaches with water that were blue and rather unlike the red algae-infested Aztec tides that reflect off of the rehabilitated Teotihuacan in the center of the great Mexican lake today. But no, back when we drank in views and climbed mysterious mountains. Before the change again and again, ceaseless with change without monumental capable foundations. For our secret desire for freedom. We knew we had no time when the winds came. This was something else, and no Rome could withstand a blast of hurricane powers like this. Although they tried, and assassination attempts and success brought our state to a broken, belligerent barony. Buried you? Noi. Never me craft prevents me always steering into and out of tides. Change away my mind. Wandered as we sank deeper. They both held my arms, and we all went down into the warm ocean. Where were those few charitable souls I had known in my previous to our sorry sinking tale? Lost or else now changed. Simple life, but only ever switching, swapping cards, stealing some from your cane, giving back cartoon confetti. I could feel myself drifting in my mind set to sunrise, and all the words mingled, almost freezing for a second. And all I knew was a trailing, chanting, timorous, nasally voice, my own, or some other spirit's. But I alone heard and lost my way, labyrinthine, axonic pulsations and metaphoric euphoria. And towing me along, we reached a gourd-shaped gasket with a chain wire landing pad, and we dusted off seaweed clingings as we strode toward the time lock, and opened the way into breathable, living, virtuous, God-given oxygen. My sinuses were swollen from all the salt water, and I flapped like a trout fishing pole dumped overboard. We made our way into the time chamber. A quick switch in directionality said pay will take you nowhere. You have to crack it by 2,000 years or more to override the administrator password. Luckily, the Atlanteans existed 12,000 years ago, and so a factor of 6, and then they'll send you where you're aiming. I'm aiming? Said I. Yes, not we. Welcome to Terminal 4, it said on my screen. I looked around, and they were gone. Perhaps the most important fact that no one realizes is that time in Atlantis begins at its sinking and progresses backwards in shifting paranormal drifting eye rainbows before your eyes, and its history retreats into a glorious distant past. For us, future told me that lies in the past, and only through diligent study they have the ones in 33,000 BC discovered how to travel before or for you after the initial sinking. And lo and behold, they've resurrected the town in 2033. That's my year, I would say, and they would laugh and say, yes, we know all about you all. And I would say, why me? And then they would say the opposite of whatever they had just said. They don't know anything about me after all. Oh well. It occurred to me that they were lying, but I thought, trust these time-traveling contradictors, and whatever they'll have to say. Goodbye, eventually, here we go. Boom, they zapped me to 2023. Here I was in my older self sitting on a bridge from 10 years prior. Fire exuded from the side to my left, all the way along the line, but cars kept streaming back and forth before me, and it occurred to me that the flames were, in my mind, all an extended metaphor for my time in the city from which I had then just walked, but in a sense of burning pyre was real. As I never was going back, I looked over the brimming bridge and saw the raging waters underneath, not too far down. But the river will pull me to my end surely, and so I jumped and remembered now my jumping. I hit the water very hard and wondered for a moment that I felt totally frozen and then nothing before a cry from ashore woke me. "Oh, my headache," I said, and crept awkwardly to my feet. Before me was a beach, some miles before the bridge. I don't remember getting wet, and yet before me stood 100 beachgoers, and drifting out on my feet, standing on the water. The tide carried me comfortably to the shore, where silent and almost sleeping eyes bore holes into mine. It was my emerald bow tie I noticed that they couldn't stop looking at. It must have been the only thing that kept me from being torn to pieces by that hungry, shifty, rabid-mouthed crowd. Somehow I stumbled away, but it is said that everyone that day spread manic infections to all other populace. They believed in my being someone I was actually not. But beyond that same spell I had fallen on all them who witnessed me, and it was like a new virus which split everything and canceled everything that was thought to be known to all radar telecommunications down new internet viruses. I ran away from them and into the woods, where I kept running and faster to escape not anymore. There seemed to be no escape. Jumping off a bridge, you'll sure reckon was something. How had I walked on water? And there, a pair of eyes staring at me, and a woman who kept shrinking appeared before me and looked with enlarging eyes, said, "It's you who I saw on the beach. We all saw you fall from the bridge, and then it was like you. Who are you?" She inched closer with an extended paw and touched my arm, which felt neither hot nor going further. A sickly ooze protruded and followed her retracted arm, and she was terrified, and said, "You killed me." And then her cat limbs arched, and a fearsome tiger held me captive. But I stayed like a rant in its mists until helicopters forced its route. The helicopter landed above the trees and dropped a rope swinging down to my knees, so I quickly carouseled myself to the top, and there, to meet me, was Poe, who of all people should I ever met, except he wore yellow contact lenses, which made his eye muddy